Vada. In this video, we'll try to implement a custom search in Angular with string priority. Let us understand the complete requirement with an example. Let us consider we have list of 3 states. Each state is having a word Pradesh, but we have to search the list with immediate occurrence of the search value and show the list. For example, if the user search with Pradesh, the resultant list will have all the 3, but Pradesh word immediate occurrence is in Madhya Pradesh, that is 6th position, which includes the space, and the second position in Andhra Pradesh, that is occurrence is at 7th position, which includes the space. If the user search for Madhya word, we have only one occurrence and that will be shown in the list. So in this GIF, you have a clear understanding of what we are trying to implement. And in this, we are doing a string priority search, that is immediate occurrence of the search value from the list. And here we are doing the search based on the name of the state. I have created already an Angular project, and let me try to implement this with a pipe, that is Angular pipes. And let me go to component.html. Let me remove all the content which we have already, and let me go to PS. Let me remove all the content which we are not using. And now let us create a table with an ID and a name. Before that, let's create a dummy table data. Let's consider it as data source. ID1, name something like Andhra Pradesh. Let me copy this object. Let me create 2 more objects. Let me consider 4 objects, 3 and 4. So Arunachal Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and here let me create something like Telangana. So these are my 4 states in my array. Let us loop this and create our table. I have created a div, and let me give some spacing like style, some margin left 20 pixel, or let me give 100 pixel, and margin right 100 pixel. Here let's create our own table. Before that, let me create a search field. Let me consider this div for search. Input, type text, and let us create a placeholder which indicates something like search with state name. Okay, and let's create one more div. Here let us create a table. In this table, let me create t-head. Inside this t-head, let me create td directly. Td id. Let me copy this td, paste one more. Let me create something like name, and my t-head is ready. Now let's create a t body and row with td as well as one more td. Instead of having each and every row, let's loop it. ngFor is a structural directive which is used for looping. Let some item of data source. This data source. This data source is already configured in our component, and now I'm using that for looping, and it is having one ID and name. So if you see the HTML, the data source will be looping, and each and every value or the object will be given to this item. Let's display an ID, item.id, and let me give item dot name. So that's our HTML is completed. So let's run this application. Okay. Once the application is successfully compiled, let us open this in our browser. Let us open this in our browser by using localhost 4200. If you see here, this is not completely designed. Let's give some border to this table. Let me go to our CSS file. I have a CSS file. So let me give something like table, comma, thead, comma, tr, comma, td with some border 1 pixel, solid black. So after saving this, again go back to our page. Now it's a bit designed and we have search value. So let me try to search here. So nothing is changing. When I search something, it is not changing our current table because that implementation is not yet done. We have a template table. Let's go back and let us go back to our app.component.ts. Here let's create a search value with an empty string, and this is initially it will be empty string. Save it, and let's implement this two-way binding by using ng model. Before using the ng model, let's cross-check whether the forms module is imported in our app module. If you see here, we are not using any forms module, which is not yet imported into our app module. So what's the problem if we are not importing our app form module? Let's go to HTML. Let me try to implement an ng model with a search value, which is this one, search value, copy, and let's paste in this model and save it. And if you see here, cannot bind ng model since it is not known property of an input. So why it is saying it's not known property? Because it's unable to find the forms module and it's not able to use ng model. Let's import our forms module into our app module, save it. Yeah, it is compiled successfully. And let me try whether it is working as expected or not. Let me create a paragraph, and inside this paragraph, let's print our search value. Save it, go back, and you got a space. Let me close this, and let's go and search for a value, Pradesh. So our ng model is working as expected. Now what we have to do is we have to search this particular string in our table and display the list. So for this set, I want to use pipes. Let me create a pipe. Let me open another terminal, and in my system already Angular has been configured globally, so I'll use CLI for creating a pipes. ng generate pipe, some pipe name. Let me give something like priority search without a spec file. So I don't want to create a spec file, so I'm using skip tests and hit enter. Yeah. So if you see here, it has been creating a search pipe, and also it has been updated app module. What it has been updated in my app module? Let's see there. So whenever I use CLI, the pipe is created and that is injected into our declarations part. That will be taken care by our CLI itself. So, and also it has been creating a file called as priority search. If you see here, it has created a file called as priority search pipe.ts. Hit on that. We have a pipe transform, and we have value, we have arguments, and return null. It should return either null or something. So in this, what are the parameters and what is the purpose of using this? How we write the logic, we'll see now. So let me go back to the previous terminal, and inside this, let me take an array, which is like my data source, and a search value, which is a string, and also a search key, which is again a string. And if you see here, it's an array. Okay, I would like to return some array. So at last we'll get a list of array. So any of array. In this case, let's create two cases. If search value exists and if search does not exist. So if search value exists, we have to perform some logic, else let us return an array. So now, before performing our logic, let me create some resultant array which has to be returned if you have some such value. So let me create something like result array, and for initially it is empty. If I have that search value, then execute our logic. So let me consider a loop. Let I equal to 0, I less than, so array dot length I plus plus. I'll get each and every object in this loop. Let's find whether our search value exists in that particular name property of that object inside an array. So const index is equal to array dot or array of I dot name dot to lower case dot. We have a method called as search for a string. It will search for the string whether it exists or not. If it exists, it returns some index value, else it won't return any index value. So let me pass search value, and I don't want to check with a case sensitive. So that is the reason I'm converting everything into two lowercase. So in this name, if the search value exists, it will return some index value. That is the starting occurrence. So if my index is not equal to -1, that means if you have the index, that means you have the search. Otherwise, you don't have. Else, there is no search happening. So return even, return empty. So for example, if I have the index, let me create an object, a new object. Inside this object, I want to pass the index value. That means the position of the first occurrence of my search value inside an object of an array. So let me use spread operator, arr of I, comma, and store my index value in this index. So once this object is framed, let me push into my result array. Dot push of obj. So once my loop is completed, I think we can remove this else part. Once my loop is completed, I'll get some indexes. We can sort it and return back. So let me sort that resultant array. Result array dot sort of array of objects. We can use a comma b, and inside this, what I want to do is a is an object, a dot index minus b dot index. We'll get a array, sorted array. So once the sorting is done, let us return the resultant array. And in this case, either it will go to if condition or else condition, so we don't need any return of null. And now the sorting is done with the index value, and then it can be written back to our search things. And if you see here, I have used a name which is hard coded. So I don't want to use hard coded value. Let us first pass this value as a dynamic value. Search key. So whatever the search key you are passing, that should exist in your array. And then it will check, it will sort, and it will return. So let's re-understand this. You have an array, which is the input array, and you have a search value, which you are searching, and you have a search key, which is the key for your object. So if the search exists, do perform some logic which we want, and if not, return normal array, our general array. Let's consider if search exists. I'm looping the array, and each and every string value of that array, that is name property of that array, I'm checking with the search value. And if index not equal to -1, that means the search value has been existed in that particular string. Then I'm passing an object. Inside the object, I'm passing an index value. For this index value, I'm assigning the current index value. And in this case, once the object is framed, I'm pushing into my resultant array. At last, after whole loop is completed, my resultant array will consist of the actual each and every actual object of an array along with the index. So with this index, I'm trying to sort it out and returning that resultant array, which will be like sorted in a priority order of the each and every string with the immediate occurrence. So we have implemented our logic. Let's try to use this pipe priority search in our code. So let me copy this and let me go to HTML. Here we have ng model, that is search value, and here we have data source. For this data source, I'm adding a pipe with a property. The first property or the first parameter is data source. That will be taken care by the pipe itself. So second and third values we have to pass. For my second value, I'm passing a search value, and for my third value, I'm passing a name property, which is like search key. So now this data source, the search value, the name will be moving to your pipe logic. It will execute, it will transform your original array, it will return an array after doing all the operations, and that will be updated in your HTML. Let me save this. Let me go back to the browser and let's execute this. So in this case, I'm hitting Pradesh. If you see here, the Pradesh occurrence in Madhya Pradesh is at 6th position, including the space, and Andhra Pradesh, the Pradesh position is at 7th position. And if you see the below Arunachal Pradesh, it's very long from compared to Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. There is no Telangana. Why? Because Pradesh is not present in that Telangana. So that is why there is no Telangana. And if you try to search with capital letters, Pradesh, and if you remove all the search string, it's like showing all the arrays because no search value. And let me try with Telangana. It is Telangana. And let me give a space. So nothing exists because Telangana space is not there. We have only Telangana. And let me go with Madhya. Yeah. So it is working as expected. So this is how we can implement an advanced search with a priority search or anything by using a pipes in Angular. This is one of my small experiment where the people can use a client-side search, that too based on the priority search for an array. So one thing we can say, like, this logic can be changed as per our requirement and can be made more advanced. For now, we are using this. If you like my video, like, share, subscribe to my channel. Thank you.